When my two daughters were little, they thought I was the most exciting person in the world. And then they grew up. And I tried to stay exciting for them. Like, I tried to be really fearless because there was nothing I wanted more for my two daughters than for them to be fearless and go out into the world and do anything they wanted to do. But I also had this real passion about keeping them safe. So protected and fearless. These two things are contradictory. They do not complement one another. As I found out about when my daughter was 1.5 years, she and my husband and I go down to Florida. And Dan says to me, why don't we go canoeing in the Loxahatchee River? There are alligators in the Loxahatchee River. And I should tell you that my husband was born in Montana, and he is afraid of nothing. I mean, he will do any adventurous thing. I am a city girl from Pittsburgh, and I am afraid of everything. And because I'm afraid of everything, I always have something to prove. I will do anything. So when he suggests going canoeing in the Loxahatchee River, I say, okay. So we put on our life vests, and we put a life vest on our very tiny 1.5-year-old daughter, and we get in the canoe, and I'm in the front, and Julia's in the middle, and Dan is in the back. And I say to him, if you swear to me that you will not take your eyes off her, I will relax. And he says, okay. So we're paddling down the river, and about 10 minutes later, I hear him say to her, Julia, if you lean over like this and put your finger in the water, you can make a really pretty little stream. And 10 seconds later, my baby falls into the river. And like that, I am out of the canoe, I am in the water, and I cannot swim. So I grab her, and I doggy paddle over to the canoe, and I hand her up to him, and he says, why did you do that? I could have just reached down and picked her up. And I say, there are alligators in this river. And I'm trying to climb into the canoe, and he's beating my hands off. He says, if you try to climb in, you're going to pull the canoe over, and there is camera equipment in here. So, yeah. So the lesson I learned from this is always bring up the rear. So, when your kids are little, everything is exciting. It's really easy to make sure they're safe. It's like, push me in the swing, Mommy, and Mommy, catch me, I'm going to jump in the water. And then they get to be a little bit older. And because I'm married to who I'm married to, we do more and more adventuresome things. So I'm at the top of the ski slope, doing, what is this called when you do this? Yeah, I'd be doing that, and they'd be going straight down the mountain, or we'd be whitewater rafting, and I'd be holding onto the back, terrified, and watching them bounce all over the place, or we'd be horseback riding, and I hate horses. So we're in Colorado, and we're on horses, and the horse is this wide, and the trail is this wide, and there's this much room between the trail and this really sheer drop. And I'm looking at my 7-year-old and my 9-year-old and my husband and the guide, and I'm thinking, one misstep, that's all it will take, and somebody is going to die. But nobody dies. And then it sort of backfires on us, right? Our daughters become adolescents. And so we know they're out there doing stuff, right? We know they're out there having adventures. We remember we were young, but part of the excitement of being young and an adolescent is that your mother doesn't know what you're doing. So I don't know what they're doing. I just know they're out there doing it. And then they get a little bit older and they start to tell us what they're doing, and we wish they wouldn't. Oh, look, honey, there's an email from Julia. Dear Mom and Dad, Uganda is wonderful. Despite the Civil War. I'm having a really great time where I am, but I feel that I really must go to Gulu, even though that's where the fighting is fiercest. But don't worry, I'll be going with 3 really big guys. Dear Julia, if you need 3 really big guys to go with you to Gulu, you do not need to go to Gulu. Of course she goes to Gulu. Leanne, our younger daughter, she does semester at sea in college, and where does she go? She goes to the Pacific Rim. She goes to Thailand, she goes to Vietnam, she goes to Japan. Where does she go on her day off? She goes to the demarcation line between North and South Korea. Oh my God, Mom, you should have seen it. It was the most awesome thing. It was like there was this little outhouse there, and there was this soldier, and he's got his gun up here, and he's got his finger on this button over here, and right across from him is this other soldier, and he's got his gun up here, and he's got his hand on the button over here, and they just stand there all day long staring at one another. And if anybody crosses the line, a war starts. So guess what I did? Of course she did. That's what she did. You know, and they get older. Julia moves to New York City, and I worry about her, you know, in the sketchy Brooklyn neighborhood she lives in. And Leanne moves to Los Angeles, and in the first month she totals a car on the 405, and so I'm terrified of that. But, you know, even worse than like not knowing what they're doing and whether or not they're safe is that we miss them. You know, we miss them. We used to do all this fun stuff together, and now they're grown, and we miss them. Well, about 3 years ago, we went to Hawaii together for a niece's wedding. And it was 2 weeks in Hawaii, and it was awesome. It was so much fun. And on the last night, we're driving around on the Kona side of the island, and we're trying to figure out what would be a really special thing to do on our last night in Hawaii. And Leanne is reading one of these tourist guides in the car, and she says, "Oh my God, you guys, we can go swimming at night in the ocean with the manta rays." I'm like, no. Oh, no, we cannot do this, because first of all, I cannot swim. Second, I cannot see without my glasses. And third, I am terrified of the ocean and everything in it. Why would I want to do this? Leanne says, "Well, Mom, you know, you could just sit in the car and read a book." I'm like, "Oh, well, you know, that's not happening." So about 45 minutes later, I find myself in the water, having been taken by boat about 10 miles offshore. The water is very black. The sky is very black. I have on a snorkel mask that is not prescription. I am holding a flashlight, and underneath my arms is a noodle. You know, those noodles you have in the swimming pool? Yeah, like this, which is my only means of flotation. So I'm holding this flashlight, and I'm looking into the water. I finally get up the nerve to put my face in the water, and I look down. And at first it's just a little murky, and then I see them, and they are huge. They have this wingspan that is like this, and they have these white underbellies, and they're just like swirling and swirling underneath us. And they've got this mouth that looks like the Arch of St. Louis, only with teeth. You know, and they're just like swirling underneath us, and I am terrified. And then my mask starts to fill up with water, and then I'm like really terrified, and I jump up and I pull the mask off, and I go, "Oh my God, the only thing between me and certain death is this damn noodle." I am so scared, you know, and I look over at Dan and Leanne, and they are laid out in the water, you know, and they're having a fine time. I look over at Julia, and Julia's not having such a fine time. And so I say, "Jules, would you please go over to the boat with me?" So she says, "Sure." So we doggy paddle over to the boat, and we climb up, and we're sitting in the boat, and we've got a blanket wrapped around us, and we're in our bathing suits, and she's got her arm wrapped around me, and I say, "You know, that was the most terrifying experience of my life." And she says, "I know, I threw up 3 times. So she's hugging me, and we're shivering together, and we're looking out at all these people out in the black water with their flashlights, and we don't know which one is Dan and Leanne, and we're waiting for them to come, and we wait a really long time, and I am getting more and more nervous. And finally, we see these 2 flashlights come toward our boat, and they climb up, and they get in, and Leanne says, "Mom, you left at exactly the wrong time." There were like dozens of manta rays underneath us, and they were just swirling all over the place, and like we could practically touch them. It was just awesome. You left at like just the wrong time. And for some reason, I started to sob. I just started to sob. And Julia has her arm around me, and she says, "Mom, why are you crying?" And I say, "Jules, if anything ever happens to you, I will die. I will die." And Leanne comes over and she says, Mom, why are you crying? I said, honey, I just have to tell you, if anything ever happens to you, I love you so much. I will have to die. My husband walks up from the front of the boat, takes one more look at me, and turns right back. So it takes me like the whole ride back to the shore to get myself together. And I finally get there and I can breathe again and I'm on dry land and I think, you know what? I am done. I have nothing else to prove. The only thing I want is a grandchild. So I can push her on a swing and hear her say, push me higher, Grandma, push me higher.